Hey there, it is Faith Talk Today. I'm Rick Probst, and welcome to another great Atlanta weekend. Temperature is cooler than it has been. This is my sweet spot. I love this weather this time of year. I love the fall, and I love this guest. This guy, we've had Dr. Robert Jeffress on many times, and we certainly appreciate his ministry over the years. He's got a new book out. It's called The 10, How to Live and Love in a World That Has Lost Its Way. Doc, how are you?
Great. Good to be with you, Rick, and wish I were enjoying some of that same weather. It's a little warm still here in Texas.
Well, hopefully soon. Hopefully soon you will get some fall-like weather. And also, Dr. Jeffress is the host of Pathway to Victory. You hear that here at Faith Talk Atlanta. Before we went live, Doc, we were talking about just the crazy culture, right? The politics, the lifestyles, etc. What perfect timing for this book. It's called The 10, How to Live and Love in a World That Has Lost Its Way. This world's lost its way, hasn't it?
Absolutely. And, I think back, Rick, to back in 1863 in the middle of the Civil War, when Abraham Lincoln issued his first proclamation for calling for a day of prayer and repentance. In that proclamation, he asked the question, what is it that is tearing our nation apart? And then Lincoln answered his own question. He said, we have forgotten God. And I think that's true today. I think the basic diagnosis of our problem is we have forgotten there is a God to whom we're accountable. We have forgotten God's basic rules for living. And that's why this book on the 10 Commandments, even though it's about instructions given 3,500 years ago, these instructions are more relevant today than ever before.
Now, Doc, I love this quote from you. Far from what most people think, the 10 Commandments weren't given to restrict our freedom, but to enhance our happiness. They invite us into a blessing of a loving relationship toward God and the resulting spillover into our relationships and others. I love that. The resulting spillover. I love that. Talk about that some.
Rick, so many people have a false image of God. A.W. Tozer said, what comes into our mind when we think about God is the most important thing about us. And most of us have imagined God to be some kind of cosmic killjoy whose goal in life is to keep us from any kind of joy and happiness with all of these rules and regulations. But the opposite is true. Years ago, when our daughters were little, we drove up to Pikes Peak Mountain in Colorado, and we drove up the winding road to the top of the mountain. And in those days, there wasn't a guardrail at the top of the mountain. And we were taking pictures when suddenly my 5-year-old daughter at the time, Julia, started running toward the edge of the mountain. And I instinctively yelled out, stop. Now, when I said stop, I wasn't trying to deprive her of some wonderful experience she was about to enjoy. I was trying to keep her from going over the cliff. And it's the same way with God. God is our creator. He made us. He knows how we'll work best and be happiest. And he says, stop with some things. Yeah, some of the commands are negative. No stealing, no adultery, no murder. It's kind of like no putting your finger in a 220 volt outlet. You don't do those things, not trying to kill our joy, but to enhance our joy. And so this book, The 10, is really a fresh look at the 3,500-year-old commandments and why they really are the best way to live.
Perfect timing for this book. It's called The 10, How to Live and Love in a World That Has Lost Its Way. Dr. Robert Jeffress with us, the host of Pathway to Victory. Doc, when you were putting this together, and this is near and dear to your heart, when you were putting this together, what spoke to you personally, do you think? What did you get out of it personally?
I think I had fallen into that trap about a bunch of negatives that God is giving us. And I was reawakened to the truth again, that these commands were not given to repress us, but to bless us. And God loves us more than any being in the universe. And he does want us to be joyful. And these commandments, while they certainly will not lead you into heaven, none of us can keep the commandments closely enough to earn God's forgiveness. We need the forgiveness that comes through Christ. They really are a good way to live. And, so many people, Rick, have a false view of the commandments. They Some people see it as a way to get to heaven. Some people look at it and see it as an impossible standard to keep. And I would just say to anybody in our audience today who said, I've broken so many of the commandments, I've broken 11 out of the 10 commandments, and I do so every day. I'm beyond help. That's why Christ came, to forgive us. Colossians 2 says he came to forgive us of all. I love that word, all of our transgressions. James said the law is like a mirror that shows us how dirty we are. You can look in the morning, as I did a few minutes ago, at my face. It'd be covered in grit and grime. The mirror doesn't make my face clean, but it reveals that it needs to be clean. And that's one of the benefits of the 10 Commandments. They remind us of how far we've fallen short of God's plan and how much we need the forgiveness that he freely offers.
I love that analogy. Dr. Robert Jeffress, The 10, How to Live and Love in a World That Has Lost Its Way. You can get it at Amazon or anywhere you get your books. You can go to faithtalkatlanta.com. There's a link there where you can follow Pathway to Victory and find out more about Dr. Robert Jeffress. On his website, there are videos, a lot of resources there as well. I love this one, what observing the Sabbath looks like in 2023. We have no clue, do we, Doc? I mean, what's a Sabbath?
And look, that is the only one of the 10 Commandments Jesus didn't repeat in the New Testament. Because the day of worship changed in the New Testament. After the resurrection, it's the first day of the week, Sunday. But the principle still remains. We need a day once a week when we focus on refreshing ourselves spiritually, emotionally, and physically. God gave the Sabbath not as a list of regulations of what you can't and can't do, but to remind us that we weren't meant to work 24/7. And, when I was growing up, I grew up in a Baptist church, and, we had the idea that the worst kind of debauchery you could engage in was to go to movies on Sundays. Now, you could watch television if it was a football game, but the only people who ever did that was Methodists. My grandparents were Methodists. They'd come to visit us. They'd go to the movies, and never had I ever wished to be a Methodist any more than when my grandparents were going to the movie. Well, that's silly to say you can go to watch television, but you can't go to the movies. That's not what the Sabbath is. It's given, Jesus said, for our benefit, not for God's benefit.
Love it. Dr. Robert Jeffress, the book is called The 10, How to Live and Love in a World That Has Lost Its Way. You can also hear Dr. Jeffress on Pathway to Victory here at Faith Talk Atlanta. All right, let's talk about reasons that strong, God-honoring families are foundational in shaping of our society, Doc.
Well, they are. And by the way, that kind of leads to 2 commandments. 2 of the 10 had to do with the family. No adultery. People wonder about all of these gender confusion and same-sex marriage issues. God set down the rule. He said in Genesis 2, I'm designing marriage. I'm designing sex to be between a man and a woman in a lifetime relationship called marriage. And any deviation from that is going to hurt you. It's going to keep you from experiencing sex the way I designed for you to experience it. So that no adultery, again, is a guardrail that enhances our joy. It doesn't restrict our joy. And then he also gave one related to the family: honor your father and mother. A lot of people believe that only has to do with children. It certainly starts there. Children are to obey their parents. If they don't learn respect for authority in the home, they won't have that same respect for authority in the classroom, in the workplace, or as a citizen of a country. But it goes beyond children. Young adults maybe don't obey their parents, but they ought to consult and listen to the wisdom of their parents and carefully consider it. But Rick, one way we keep that promise, even after our parents are dead, is to honor them in the way we remember them and the way we speak about our parents. We can always find something negative to dwell on that our parents did wrong, but to honor our parents as God intended remembers to not dwell on the negative, focus on the positive things they did and try to emulate those things.
So good. Always a great sit down with Dr. Robert Jeffress, the host of Pathway to Victory, pastor and author. His latest book, The 10 How to Live and Love in a World That Has Lost Its Way. Has this already been a series for you? Are you working on that now, or what's going on with that, Doc?
Well, the series is airing on Pathway to Victory right now. So you can listen and then get the book. I might mention, Rick, that there's a study guide that also is available at Amazon that goes along with the book. We're already finding a lot of small group Bible studies are using the 10 as a small group study or a Sunday school class. It's very, very relevant to where people are today. So I'd encourage people to go to Amazon or another retailer and get a copy of the book and the study guide.
So good. And real quick, what's next for you, Doc? What's going on with you?
Well, I'm getting ready to preach through the book of Ephesians starting this Sunday.
Ooh, love
Holy
it.
living in an unholy world, and that will make its way onto Pathway to Victory very soon.
Looking forward to that. Dr. Robert Jeffress, the host of Pathway to Victory, pastor, author, speaker. You may even catch him on television. Look out. Fox News. Check it out. The 10 is the book, How to Live and Love in a World That Has Lost Its Way. Doc, thank you so much. You're such a blessing to us.
Always great to be with you, Rick. Thanks for having me.
Ezra Ortiz, thank you so much for setting us up. It's going to be a great weekend next weekend as well. Great show. Looking forward to it. Until next weekend, I'm your host, Rick Probst. See ya.